Thank you for tuning in to the Voice of the Victim podcast. We discuss a lot of sad and potentially triggering things on this show. We try to be as sensitive and cautious as possible, but if you are sensitive to things involving abuse and may be triggered, please think twice before listening to our show. There are over 700,000 sexual offenders in the United States alone. With all the social media these days, how can we protect ourselves and our children from these despicable predators?
Welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast, where we discuss criminal cases that involve some factor of abuse. Our goal is to spread awareness of abuse that could be taking place around any of us and encourage everyone to take responsibility and report if they see a child or an adult being abused. Amina and Sarah Said were the daughters of Tissie and Yaser Said. Their father Yaser was an Egyptian-American man who wanted his daughters to marry Muslim men. But they had both fallen in love with non-Muslim boys, and they didn't tell their father because they feared his reaction. This led to a lot of tension in the Said household. But it didn't just stop there. Yaser would stalk the girls to try to learn their secrets. He would secretly record them with his video camera. This made them very uncomfortable, and for good reason. He had also abused them in the past and threatened them into keeping quiet. They were desperate to start a new life, and their boyfriends had just recently proposed. But Yaser wasn't going to let them go easily.
Welcome to the Voice of the Victim podcast. I'm Rosie.
I'm Ryan. I forgot to say and. Whoops. Anyway, how are you doing tonight, Rosie?
I'm doing good. How about you, Ryan?
I'm pretty good. I'm excited that it looks like spring is about here. Mm-hmm. The next 10-day forecast is in over the 30s, so it's pretty awesome for what we've been used to the last few months. The
sun is shining. The snow is melting.
I thought you were going to start singing Bob Marley.
The weather is sweet.
Well, before we get started today, we just want to take a second to say thank you to our 4 newest patrons. Kara, Michelle, Tyler, and Christina.
Yay!
So, yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you to our new Fantastic 4.
All right, this is a part 2 of the Said sisters, so if you haven't heard part 1, be sure you go listen to that first. It's episode 50. But other than that, we're just going to jump right into it.
All right. So when we left off, it was the end of 2007. The girls had accepted proposals from their high school sweethearts and finally had some hope of getting out of their oppressive home that their father was providing. In December of 2007, Yaser was getting more and more agitated, knowing that his daughters were seeing non-Muslim boys and trying to hide it from him.
Again, I say, of course they're trying to hide it. You're a freaking spaz, dude.
And I'm sorry that I mispronounced it. It's Yaser.
Yaser.
Not Yaser.
And if you hear weird sounds, it's because it's really windy outside, and there's a sign on the front of our house that keeps bouncing and slamming into our siding.
I'll take it down if it gets too loud.
Yeah.
We mentioned before that Yaser had found a note for Amina's boyfriend. Yaser freaked out about this, and within a few days, he moved the family over to Louisville, 60 miles away from where they had been in Dallas. Again, I cannot believe that they did this in a few days. Like, isn't that hard? To pick up and move like that?
Yeah, but it seems like he was trying to separate Amina from whoever she'd been seeing, and as we talked about last week, that was like the focus of this guy's life was squelching his daughter's desires, apparently.
This was awful for the girls' boyfriends because the girls just literally disappeared. They didn't hear from the girls for months. Yaser had moved them away and taken their phones. This is when Yaser really started to exercise his domination over all the women in the family.
Yeah, Tissie said that he wouldn't even let her go to the store by herself. And of course the girls couldn't go anywhere alone either. They could only go if Yaser or Islam were with them. So how misogynistic is that? It's just awful. Tissie, who was in her late 30s, maybe 40s even, couldn't go to the grocery store unless her 19-year-old son was with her. What a slap in the face from your mate. Yaser's just a bad dude.
And as far as the women knew, Yaser still had no idea about the engagements or even who the boys were. But he kept trying to dig it out of the girls and Tissie. Tissie would not let herself tell him the details because she was terrified of what he might do to them, the girls and their boyfriends, if he found out.
And that's just her motherly instinct, trying to keep them safe.
Just before Christmas Day of 2007, something happened that was the final straw for Tissie. Yaser had threatened to kill Amina because she was dating an American boy.
They're just trying to be normal American girls, and their creepwad of a father threatens to kill them? I don't care if you're serious or not. You should never tell someone, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, that's like a good tip
Yeah.
for living life. Amina had gotten a burner phone for herself, and when she did, her and Joseph had actually started to discuss a plan to get her out of that house. Joseph actually quit school and got his GED so he could start working and saving up. He started to work at a factory fabricating hoses for aerospace companies, making $15 an hour. So I really respect him, like, sticking around and still trying to be there.
I mean, that's the thing you gotta do if you want to be in a relationship and get married. You gotta have a job, then that's the first step, which he took. So
Yeah.
responsible.
After the death threats, Tissie couldn't take it anymore. She had to take the girls and get the heck out of there. She called her sister Connie and told her what Yaser said, and that she planned on leaving. On Christmas morning, she and the girls packed what they could and left the house. They picked up Sarah's boyfriend Eric, then drove to pick up Amina's friend Eddie.
Yeah, I was confused why they didn't pick up Joseph for this trip, Amina's boyfriend, but I'm guessing it's one of two things. Either it was to protect his identity in case Yaser was following them, or because he had a job in he had the job we just talked about, and they didn't want to take him away from it.
Yeah, the hoses.
Yeah. So, also they were coming from Louisville, which was 60 miles from where Joseph lived. So maybe it was too out of the way. They were definitely in a hurry to get out of there.
They drove up to Wichita, Kansas, to Tissie's aunt, Jill's house.
Yeah, Tissie was just desperate to get out of the area.
When Jill opened the door to let them in, the first thing Tissie said was, "The girls want to run away with their boyfriends, but I can't let that happen." But then Amina spoke up and said, "My mom has always wanted to leave my dad, and we told her we could take her with us."
So the girls didn't just want to run away so they could be with their boyfriends. They were willing to take Tissie along as well and help her escape her own abusive relationship, because that was really the big issue here, was the abusive father and husband.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, they would have just stayed around and gotten with their boyfriends in due time. But yeah, they were really trying to escape something here.
This is when Jill found out that Yaser had been beating Tissie for nearly 2 decades, and he would regularly beat Amina and Sarah as well. Tissie told her aunt that she couldn't go back to Yaser. At that time, she really believed that if she brought the girls back to Yaser, he would definitely kill them.
Yeah, and according to Jill, those were Tissie's own words.
At this point, Yaser had reported his family missing, and he had Islam file a report as well. He told the police that he had been angry with his daughter Amina for having a possible boyfriend, but he didn't know who. The Louisville police actually called to talk to Tissie and make sure everything was okay, but she ignored their call, telling Jill that she'd get back to them in the next couple days. Jill tried to convince her to call right away, but she didn't want to at the time.
It's interesting that Yaser had Islam calling the police too and filing reports.
Yeah.
Like I said before, like Islam was really brainwashed by Yaser.
Mm-hmm. Jill made a Mexican dinner for them while they were there, but they needed some tortilla chips. Tissie offered to get the chips, but she wouldn't leave the kids alone at Jill's house.
Yeah, she had all four kids get in the car and come with her to get a bag of chips. And I guess on this trip to the store, they discussed their plans. And one of the boys actually had relatives in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was even farther away.
Hmm. When they returned from the store, Tissie told Jill that they would be leaving after dinner for Tulsa. They were only there for 3 hours, but they weren't comfortable being there.
Yeah, I'm guessing they wanted to get as far away from Yasser as possible and be somewhere where he couldn't track them, because he probably knew where Tissie's aunt lived.
Yeah, probably. On December 28th, they signed a lease on an apartment in Tulsa under a fake name. The 5 of them moved in and planned on hiding there. They would even buy untraceable burner phones to communicate with other people, and threw away their old phones, so there was no way Yasser could track them. This is how Amina kept in contact with her fiancé Joseph. Tissie got a job quickly in the area and planned on starting that Monday. Wow, so they're like really going hardcore
Yeah,
for hiding.
everything seemed to be falling into place, and I mean, it couldn't have worked out better for just randomly running out of the state and trying to start a new life, start fresh. But yeah, they still hadn't talked to the police and let them know they were okay. So even though they were away from the abuse and able to start healing, Yasser was still pretty was still after them.
Yeah, I wonder why they didn't go to the police.
Yeah, that is the strange
And what held them back?
detail here, because yeah, you're right. If she would have talked to the police and told them exactly what was going on, might have helped. But
Maybe she just was just so scared of the whole situation.
yeah, remember, he has 3 brothers that are like a wolf pack that have his back. So if she does something to get him arrested, there's still 3 brothers to come after her.
Yasser and Islam were both really upset. Islam missed his mom and sisters.
And I do feel bad for Islam. This poor kid has been so brainwashed by his father, he can't even see the problem with the way his father has been treating the girls. Because this is what he was raised with, and to him it was normal. Easy for him because he was a boy, and apparently the second in command in the house, even over his mother.
Oh, that makes me upset.
I know, it's
Not good.
very much an old-fashioned idea, that should have never existed.
Tissie was trying to keep communication cut off between herself and Yasser. On December 29th, Amina's friend Eddie had to return to Texas because he had a job as a DJ and had a commitment to work for 2 more days back in Louisville. He planned to return briefly, just for the last 2 days, then return to Oklahoma.
And that's when we get the wolf pack of brothers involved again. Yasser's brother Yasin started making calls to Tissie.
Yasin was pleading with Tissie to call Yasser and talk to him. He made Yasser sound sympathetic, saying that he didn't understand why his wife left and took the kids.
Is he really that clueless?
Doubt it. Yasin promised Tissie that if Yasser wasn't being nice to the girls after they returned home, Yasin would make him move out.
Shockingly, to me at least, Tissie did call Yasser. And
That's a huge shock.
I can't say that I think she believed Yasin here. Yeah, because Yasin told her that he would make Yasser leave if he was being mean to them again. But I really don't believe that, because I think Yasser's ideals kind of come from the family. But I guess that's just my own thought.
She was a victim of physical and mental abuse for so long. Maybe she just had a clouded look on things.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yasser apologized on the phone and told them that the house was theirs, and if they didn't want him there, he would leave. He told her that Amina and Sarah's school is very important, and that she couldn't just uproot them from their house and friends and disappear.
So what are the odds that he's just being manipulative here?
He also talked to Sarah and Amina. He made the girls believe that everything was okay. It almost felt like he'd dropped the whole boyfriend thing and moved on. Amina had been keeping contact with her boyfriend Joseph regularly, and she was starting to text him about being scared that her mom was going to take them back to Texas and return to their father. After this call with Yaser, Tissie decided that they would go back.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're going back.
And this is the decision that pretty much made this whole story pan out to what it became. She figured everything would work itself out. The girls would be able to move out soon, and she'd lived with Yaser for 20 years and she'd made it this far, so maybe she's just really believed everything would be okay. But yeah, it was not the best decision.
Yes. This really hit Amina hard. She began questioning whether her mother even loved her anymore. She couldn't understand how her mother could care more about what her abusive husband wanted than the safety of her own daughters. Both girls had been adamant that they hated their father and they would never return to Texas. But Tissie told the girls that they were just returning to Texas and staying at their Aunt Connie's house so they could put flowers on their grandma's grave for her birthday. Tissie didn't tell the girls that she planned on going back to Yaser.
Even more interesting, Connie had no idea they were coming back to Texas until Amina told her later, which we'll get into. But Tissie manipulated them into going back. But, I mean, it seems so cold-hearted and like, how could a mother do this? But again, we need to remember, Tissie's also a victim of abuse in this situation. And she probably had so much on her mind at the time. It doesn't excuse her actions at all, but it could have affected them.
Oh, totally. When they arrived back in Louisville, she finally told the girls that they were returning to their father. Amina lost it.
Yeah, again, Amina is so frustrated that her mother is returning to her abuser and putting her own children in danger. If there weren't kids involved, I guess I wouldn't be as mad at Tissie for this, but you gotta protect your kids. This is so stupid.
Amina told her mom that there was no way she was going back to her father. As soon as they got back home where Yaser was, Amina took the car and left. She went back to Eddie's house. On December 31st, Amina called her Aunt Connie. She said, "Did you know my mom went back to my dad?"
And Amina was pretty angry on the phone. Connie said she was pretty much yelling at her.
Connie was confused, having no idea that they were back in Texas. Then Amina repeated it again, asking her if she knew, but Connie had no idea. She'd lost contact with them because the last number they'd given her was an old burner phone that they'd thrown away, and they never gave her a new one. Amina was terrified, knowing that as soon as Tissie got back to Yaser, she would tell him everything about the girls' relationship. She told her aunt she would rather die than go back to their father.
I can't imagine being in Amina's shoes here and knowing how her father's going to react to this news of her just being a normal teenager. She's 18 years old. She has every right to have a boyfriend.
Right.
But her father was completely unreasonable, and I can't imagine being her in this situation. And she was texting her boyfriend Joseph, talking about running away with him at this point, because what else could they do?
Right. Around 8 a.m., New Year's morning, Amina received a text from her sister Sarah's phone, begging her to come home. Amina said it wasn't going to happen. At this point, Tissie says that Amina eventually called her and asked her mom to come pick her up. But in reality, Tissie had been calling Amina every couple of minutes all morning and into the early afternoon.
Yeah, Amina kept saying no, and Joseph kept reassuring her not to trust her mom and dad. Like, trust your gut, don't go back. But eventually, Tissie drove over to Eddie's house where Amina had been staying and told Amina that she had to come home. And this led to Amina texting her boyfriend, telling him she loved him and I gotta do what I gotta do. And she finally returned home with her mother.
When Amina got home, her father seemed happy to see her. He kissed both Sarah and Amina and told them that he wanted to take them out to dinner and have a heart-to-heart talk with them both.
It's impossible to know what they talked about on the car ride to dinner, but I'm guessing the girls finally told their father about their boyfriends and their plans to get married. Seeing how manipulative Yaser had been, it's easy to believe that he could have convinced the girls that he was okay with whatever they wanted to do now. Like, he could have told them he just wanted to know what was going on in their lives. This is all my own speculation, but given what happened next, it is what makes the most sense to me.
Not long after they left the house to go to dinner, the following 911 call was placed.
And we want to warn you before we play this, it's very disturbing. And if you might be triggered by a 911 call and hearing someone in trauma, then you should probably turn it off now. So know that we warned you, but we want to play it because it really helps you feel the impact and the gravity of the situation after knowing everything these girls went through to try to get away from their abusive father and all of the outs they could have had if their mother would have had their back, basically. So keep that in mind as you listen to this.
Harvey 911, what is your emergency? What's going on, ma'am?
I'm dying. That's what's up.
Okay, let me transfer you. I'm gonna get fire department online. Okay, hold on one sec. Okay.
Oh my God!
Irving Fire Department. Irving Fire Department.
Ma'am, are you still there? Ma'am, are you still there? All I've got is she's telling me she's dying. I've got a. Why are you still there, ma'am? Ma'am, what is your address? Ma'am.
Okay. It's a really hard clip to listen to.
I know, it's just picturing what was happening while this call was being recorded is just, it's terrifying, and we don't want to dwell too much on that, but just knowing how much these girls had already been through, and this was the terrible end to their story.
The police traced the call back to a taxi cab near Dallas, Texas. Inside, Amina and Sarah Said sat slumped over, shot to death by their own father.
So let that sink in. It's such an unbelievable act of hatred, and especially considering how hard they tried to stay away from Yaser. The irresponsible parenting in the days leading up to this by Tissie put her daughters back into the danger they tried so hard to escape. And now they had paid the ultimate price for their father's ridiculous ideals and their mother's lack of willpower. These poor girls lost their lives, and the worst part to me is that Amina knew she was dying. She was sitting there suffering. And that's what's so devastating. She was fighting to the last second, trying to survive, but she knew she wasn't going to make it. She basically had to watch herself die. What kind of father would do that to his daughters? What a freaking monster.
That 911 call really makes it real when you can listen to her.
I know. I debated with myself whether we were going to play that, but I think it's such a powerful, just being able to hear what she was going through and how you can hear the frustration in her voice, because it's almost like she saw this coming and she tried everything she could to avoid it. And she was betrayed by both of her parents, and she knew that. And you can just hear the disappointment and frustration in her voice, and just, she was pissed off because this could have been avoided.
Right. Yaser fled from his work taxi that day and has never been seen again. Many people suspect that Tissie knows where he is, but she isn't talking. There is no record of him taking a flight to Egypt unless he was able to get fake documents or was smuggled out of the U.S. in some other way.
Yeah. So there was actually an incident in New York City where a cab driver reported that he thought he saw Yaser driving a cab near the Newark airport. And the FBI actually believes he might be driving a cab to this day in New York City.
What?
And has somehow remained undetected. I suppose if he was able to get a fake identity and change his appearance, this is possible. After seeing Breaking Bad, it definitely seems possible to me.
That's crazy to me. I mean, it seems pretty hard.
Yeah.
Especially if he's still a taxi driver. I mean, come on.
And he's one of the top 10 most wanted FBI criminals, fugitives.
Other people have allegedly seen Yaser in New York City driving a light champagne-colored Mercedes, an older model, as a cab driver. This was in 2014, and that year he was added to the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives list, along with $100,000 reward for information leading to his arrest.
It's so sad because he's clearly one of the worst fathers we've ever talked about. I mean, they're all the worst, but this guy abused his wife and children for decades and then murdered his daughters, and he hasn't gotten 1 minute of punishment for it. It's sickening.
I can't believe he wasn't caught.
I know. I would assume that he probably got help from his brothers to escape.
Right.
You know, like, follow my taxi and as soon as I get out, pick me up and we'll get away. Because I guess this was in an area where there were no cameras or I don't know.
Wow, it just doesn't even make sense to me, but I guess if it happened. We're going to be posting this monstrous picture on our Instagram accompanying this episode. But keep your eyes open. All we can do is spread awareness of this and be aware of what he looks like. If you see anything, call 1-800-CALL-FBI. That's 225-5324 for the Major Case Contact Center.
Yeah, again, that's 1-800-225-5324. These girls deserve justice after having their lives taken from them in such a cold and calloused way. And just thinking about this guy makes me so angry. I guess we can get familiar with the case, watch the documentary, The Price of Honor.
Mm-hmm. We should mention that this was labeled as an honor killing because Yaser allegedly committed this crime because of his strong Muslim faith, and he felt the girls were bringing dishonor to the family by the way they were choosing to live.
Yeah, one of these older Fox documentaries framed this whole thing as an honor killing because they weren't bringing honor to them as a Muslim family. But this is not a true Muslim thing. In The Price of Honor, some other people address this that are more qualified than us, but the Muslim religion does not advocate honor killings. It's very much an extremist, radical idea that only some people have, claiming it's a Muslim tradition, but it's really just a terrible idea that's spread throughout some Muslim people. It's so sad. But I think that's where we can wrap up this story and finally be done with this scumbag. I just can't stress enough that you should definitely watch The Price of Honor, because it really shows the different perspectives of the case. You hear from Patricia Tissie Owens. She's the mother, where you can kind of understand her actions, but at the same time, they are what led to her daughter's death. So that's got to be really difficult for her to live with. But, I mean, she was a victim of abuse. But a lot of the things she says about the day the girls were murdered contradict what the girls had been telling other people on the phone. So there's definitely some doubt about Tissie's innocence in this whole scenario.
On that same note, there's not much known about Yaser's childhood, but looking at what he did, you'd have to assume that it was kind of messed up.
Yeah, I don't know if he was abused at all. I doubt it, but he had to have some kind of strange things happen to him to do this to his daughters, right? I I mean, we don't want to speculate too much, but it seems like he was heavily influenced by his family, who seemed very extreme in their ideals. It's possible that within his family, honor killings were an actual option. And I almost wonder if his brothers were behind him, telling him that his daughters were a disgrace to their family. There could have been some kind of groupthink within the family that affected their quote-unquote Muslim beliefs that they viewed as doctrine, but it was really just influenced by their family gossip. I mean, we've all seen families that are super tight-knit, but they love to gossip about other people. But when that gossip has a lot of prejudice and misogyny, along with a false sense of godly devotion and honor, it can be really dangerous.
Yeah, it's kind of scary. But again, we want to clarify that it's not because they were Muslim. They were just really misguided and terribly deluded people that were somehow capable of justifying this horrific act in their minds. And they don't seem to have any shame. They planned it out to a T, so he wouldn't have to pay for what he did to his daughters, and he may never even be held accountable.
Yeah.
We also want to talk about Amina's boyfriend, Joseph. He took this whole thing really hard. Because of the whole honor-killing aspect, the love he and Amina shared is what allegedly caused this terrible crime. The morning of January 2nd, 2008, Joseph's mother woke him up. Her eyes were streaming with tears as she told him what had happened.
And when he heard it, all he could do was punch the headboard. It was so maddening because he'd been trying to help Amina get away from the monster that took her life. And Amina was trying so hard to get away from him too. But after all that, her mother had gone way out of her way to bring her daughters back to their abuser.
He wrote about this time, saying, "I lost it. I'd planned to spend the rest of my life with Amina, and everything I'd hoped for had suddenly come to an end. I was completely numb." Oh, it makes me so sad.
I know. I can't imagine the rage that would pulse through me if I were in his situation, knowing that he tried to stop this and knowing that the man who ruined your plans for life got away unscathed. And we also, we said that allegedly their relationship was responsible for what happened, but obviously we're not saying that as in we believe it. That's just how he sometimes feels because, this terrible thing happened. But what a doozy.
Yeah, this one is a doozy.
Yeah.
I wonder how Islam turned out.
Yeah, it was kind of up in the air because at first he seemed to be supporting his sisters and his mother, but then he kind of seemed to flip and go more towards his father's side and he was like, they had it coming and they deserved what they got. And
Really?
and
Was he on the documentary much?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I didn't focus on his aspect of it very much because I was more focused on the girls, but I think he has gone to Egypt and he's living there now. So, yeah, I don't know. But
The story does not have a happy ending at all.
no.
No happy ending and no justice.
Yeah, but we do want to spread the message about it because he's still out there somewhere, unless he died somehow. But, the more eyes we have looking for him, the better chance there is that we can actually help these girls get justice. So definitely be sure to look up his picture, Yaser Said, or else go to our Instagram and you can see it there. But, oh, man. Sorry for such a downer, you guys, but sometimes you gotta talk about stuff like that.
You're sorry about it?
Well, yeah, it's like the Davidito, Ricky Rodriguez story. There was just no happy ending, and at the end of it, we were just like, oh, But the best thing we can do is move on and
Well, yeah, we'll pep it up a bit and say, if you appreciate and enjoy our show, you can help us out by supporting us over on Patreon. It will also give you instant access to 3 more episodes at the $2 a month level. And there should be a new premium episode out every month.
Yeah, we actually started working on our upcoming premium episode today, and actually by the time this comes out, it'll probably be up.
Oh, it should be. Oh, I hope it is.
So you want to talk about what it'll be?
It's going to be talking about Chris Hansen and How to Catch a Predator show.
To Catch a Predator?
Yeah, I always mess it up.
Yeah, we're going through a lot of To Catch a Predator. What are they called? Sequences or
I don't know. I just love
incidents?
I love watching those.
Yeah, but we're going to be listing. We haven't decided on a number yet. Depends on time, but probably around between 5 and 10 of our favorite incidents. Because the great part about that is no actual child is being targeted, but you're seeing these scumbags and what their practices are, and
their stories that they come up with on the spot.
yeah, one of the ones that we're gonna share it's so hilariously stupid. The story this guy keeps spinning, like you can tell he's just pulling it out of his butt, but he keeps doubling down and refuses to admit what Chris Hansen already knows because he has the transcripts. And anyway, it should be a fun episode. So definitely it'll be our 4th premium episode over on Patreon. So go subscribe so you know when it comes out. And it should probably be out by now anyway. So
You can also get some cool stuff by signing up for our Patreon, like mugs, stickers, postcards with personal messages from us, and some other fun stuff. If you have signed up recently and want a shout out, be sure to check your Patreon messages.
yeah, we don't just automatically give shout outs. When people sign up, we make sure it's okay with them for us to say their name on the show first for their privacy. So if you have signed up and you want a shout out, be sure to check your Patreon messages.
Now it is time for the reviews part of the show.
So, the review that we're going to share this week is actually a pretty old review. It's from July of 2018. So it was one of our first reviews, and we don't want to forget about our older reviews, and definitely keep submitting reviews for us because we'll eventually read them on the show because we always appreciate kind reviews like this. But it's entitled So Important. It says, it's super easy to just be a true crime rubbernecker and lose sight of the fact that something terrible has happened to actual people. This podcast does such a fantastic job of delivering extremely heavy subject matter in a palatable and caring manner. Thanks for giving a voice to the people who really matter in these stories. Keep up the great work. 5 stars from Peregrine Falk. Anyway, thank you so much for this review because I gotta be honest, this review, it was one of our first really nice reviews, and it honestly helped shape the direction of the show. You know, it helped us see what our strengths were as podcasters and try to lean into those and keep trying to make the show as good as we possibly could. So, whoever left this review, we appreciate it a lot because it definitely played a role in making our show better, and we appreciate that.
And a bonus one that we got this morning that Ryan was so happy about.
Oh, are you going to read that one?
Yeah, it was cute. It says, better and better. I love this podcast, and Ryan has the voice of a sweet, lovable teddy bear.
How many stars?
5.
Yay.
From EP Fraz.
Thank you. Oh, man. I really appreciate that.
He is like a lovable teddy bear.
Aw.
It's your spirit animal.
I'll pay you later. Speaking of paying, we finally sold our stove like we were talking about last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, someone came and picked it up. And
The old one. Now we just have one stove.
yeah, I explained last week why we needed a new stove, and we've been cooking a lot more at home now. We went through a bit of a phase where we were pretty bad at cooking at home, and we're really working on it because, as we're going to talk about next week, I've had to make some dietary changes, and cooking at home is very important to the changes I've been making. So,
And it saves money for going on trips.
yeah. So now I want to announce that next week's episode is our 52nd episode, which means we've been doing this for an entire year. Yeah. Can you believe that? It's been a year since we randomly decided to start podcasting 12 hours before we released our first episode.
I know. That's pretty crazy.
Obviously, we're pretty impulsive people, but we like to stick to the things we start, and this podcast really surprised us on how it's taken off. And
Yeah.
so thank you all who are listening so much for being the people that helped this podcast take off, because hearing all your supportive words and seeing the numbers of people just keep growing every week that listen, we did not expect that to happen. So thank you guys so much. And thank you to the other people in the podcasting community, like Kate from Ignorance Was Bliss, and Justin from The Peripheral and Generation Y, and all the other podcasters, Minds of Madness, Kate Morris from over there. We just appreciate all of you guys so much. You've all helped us keep going and keep growing. So,
And definitely thank you to our patrons.
yeah, our patrons. You guys are the most important to us, because you actually are helping us keep doing this and pay the bills.
You're financially supporting us, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, we're able to pay a few bills a month now with your guys' help, and we really
Focus more
appreciate that.
on the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. What else were we going to talk about? Any cat news?
Not a lick.
We never talk about Queso. Have we ever told the people here about Queso's emotional issues?
Queso also, I call him Queso Dia. But
I thought his name was just Queso.
No, I changed it.
Oh, yeah.
He is my little buddy, and he doesn't like Ryan so very much.
Yeah, he's very much not a fan of me ever since the day that I took him to the vet, like pretty soon after we got him. And
There's the free vet check.
yeah, he didn't like that too much. And then there's a whole big fiasco story that we'll share someday, not right now.
What?
Oh, the whole running around the house thing, destroying.
He ripped out his claw, and it was Ryan's fault.
Now I gotta tell the story. Okay, so when I brought him home from the vet, they were like, keep him in the bathroom, especially because he's having a rough time adjusting. And so I walk in the door, set him down, I'm taking off my shoes. Then Rosie lets him out of the cat carrier while I'm taking my shoes off, and just lets him run free in the house for the first time. And he immediately runs underneath our black chair. It's just like it's not a recliner chair, but it's kind of like a recliner
It's an easy chair.
Yeah, an easy chair. He immediately runs under there. And we're like, okay, we'll leave him alone. He was under there from the afternoon that I brought him home until the next morning. And so finally that morning, I think Rosie had to go to work, and I think it was my day off, but I tried to get him out from under the chair for a long time, because at that point I had to literally force feed him tuna water, because he would not eat or drink because he was such a scaredy cat.
Poor little baby.
He was laying in his little soft plush little cat house thing, and I would have to put a can of tuna like right under his nose to get him to eat.
Yeah, he had some issues, but he's good now.
Yeah, he was so tiny, and now he's super fat.
Now he's a fat mama.
So he has come a long way. But anyway, I had to grab him by his tail to pull him out from under the chair because he wasn't eating or drinking anything. I didn't want him to die. Anyways, he hated that, and I tried to pick him up, and then he just started flailing and clawing and everything. Fell out of my hands, ran into room after room, just like knocking stuff off the walls.
All 4 of them.
Freaking out.
All 4 rooms that we own.
Yeah. Then he finally went in the bathroom where we were keeping him, and I shut the door, and he ran up behind the toilet, jumped on the sink, and he was like trying to claw up to the ceiling in the corner of the sink. And this whole time he was leaving blood trails. And then there's this little gap in the wall between our hamper and our wall, and he like went between it. It's only like 4 inches wide maybe. And he like clawed his way like 3 feet off the floor between the wall and the hamper wood holder thing. What is that thing called?
I don't know.
Anyway, he ripped one of his claws out. Well, I had to tell the story now that you brought it up.
He just ripped out a claw, and I called the vet, and they said it was fine. Now he's okay.
Yeah.
But he still hates Ryan. And he loves me.
He didn't hate me until after I pulled him out from under the chair to save his little life, and now he hates me, so...
He's a special cat to me. Because he's my little trauma kitty.
Yeah. It's been 2 years, and he still hates me.
Yeah.
But he's been getting better. He lets me pet him at night, and he actually, like when I walk past him, he begs me to pet him while he's on the bed. But anywhere else in the house, if I move, he like ducks, and then he runs to the bedroom.
Yep.
But he's a special guy.
And yeah, he is a special guy. You're the one who wanted him in the first place.
I know, so. I did. I had to talk you into getting him for such a long time. Because he was so sweet at the vet. He kept rubbing up to us on our backs. And Anyway, you never know what you're going to get with a cat.
No.
But we love him. And, yeah. Sorry that was such a long story.
That was such a long story.
You look really bored with me right now.
I could have wrapped that story up in a good 30 seconds.
Yeah, but as our listeners know, they have the power to turn off the podcast whenever they want to. So if we're getting a little too rambly, they can just...
If you're getting a little too rambly.
Yeah. Because when you do it, it's the voice of an angel. All right. Well, we better wrap things up here. Do you want to do the closing notes since I just talked forever?
Yeah, I think that you need to take a break. You can follow us on Instagram at VOV Podcast, Twitter at VOV Pod, or email us at vovpodcast@gmail.com. Also, join our Facebook group, Voice of the Victim Support System, linked in the show notes. If you want a Voice of the Victim t-shirt, you can visit vovpodcast.threadless.com, also linked in the show notes, and order t-shirts, stickers, bags, and other stuff. It's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
I actually really like their Threadless site.
Yeah, me too. Wait, am I allowed to talk now?
Shh. Anyways, I think that's about it. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye. Like that.
The podcast that dares to ask the question,
what keeps you awake at night?
Maybe it's the media reporting that
sea levels are rising globally.
Does your brain swirl with
fears fueled by horror stories?
When you hear that we're having
among the worst flu season in a decade, and it hasn't peaked yet.
Because we all know how I feel about that.
Then you've come to the right place.
Things That Keep Me Up at Night, a brand new podcast for you kindred spirits out there who cope with real-life horror with a top-notch sense of humor.
Join us on this journey of education and commiseration as we try to scare the shit out of each other every Friday. From cults to pandemics to government conspiracies, we get elbow deep in the gritty stuff, laughing all the way down the rabbit hole.
You can join the madness by tuning in anywhere you find podcasts and get updates on the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TTK Meetup. You can also visit our website for future surprises and contact info at ttkmeetup.com.
But just a disclaimer.
I don't want to be blamed if you cannot get to sleep tonight.